Okay, so I came up with the idea for you, ladies and gentlemen, to do a little contest to sort of flex your muscles and sort of use everything that we've learned thus far so you can see that it actually works. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a contest to see who can scientifically identify places in your environment, in your community, that are in need of value. You can invent a product or a service. A service is like shoveling snow or driving somebody to, like Ubers, it provides a car service, right? So things are either products or services, and then you can find out a way to work with a team, you and your team, pick a team, name a company, a mission statement, and see who can sell more of the product, right? And whoever sells more obviously wins. And I'm hopeful that the goal is for me to come down to visit you, ladies and gentlemen, and we will announce the winner of the contest and maybe take the winning team out to dinner, the winning teams out to dinner. Okay, so we did this in Florida at the Dade County Public School District, and the kids came up with the idea to do a lemonade stand. This is an actual picture of one of the kids taking names and selling people lemonade. I don't remember how much money they made, but it was a whole gang of them, and they got their parents involved. They had the whole community involved. Some ideas just off the top of my head that I think would work was like a car wash or a lemonade stand. You could do that. I remember one day me and my daughter went out and sold lemonade for 2 hours. She was like 4 or 5 years old, and they made $60, her and this other girl. All right, so excuse me. So you can actually make money with this. And what was I gonna say? Jesus, I'm sorry, I drew a blank right there. So I'm sorry. So there was this one guy who was now a billionaire entrepreneur. He came up with the idea. He reinvented online gambling, but he started cleaning out people's garages. So older people in your community that are tend to hoard their stuff for years and years, their family is afraid that they're living in a fire hazard. So if you, ladies and gentlemen, offer to take all that stuff out, their family will pay you $2, $3, $4, maybe even $500 to clean out a garage and save their loved one's life, essentially. All right. So those are some of the ideas that you can come up with, and you can actually go to different companies and ask them, what are they having problems with in this pandemic? A lot of companies can't find staff because everybody's getting paid unemployment, so nobody wants to work. You guys can fill that void for them, and they'll pay you. It's a lot less to pay you than to pay some employees and pay them health benefits and insurance. They'd gladly pay you. So. And that's scientifically, you go out there and you question people. We should probably say that the contest target would be for January 1. So you have from now until January to run this contest and see who makes the most money. And you split up the money amongst each other. The tools that you're going to need to do this are the subject of the rest of this video. All right, and you're gonna have to work together. The better your idea and the better your team, the more money you guys will make. Good luck. Happy hunting. Okay, the keys to a successful negotiation are preparation, information, and leverage. Leverage is really important, all right? So information, you got to go out there and scientifically use information, gather information on what are people having problems with, where do they need help, what is their biggest pain. That's information. That's also preparation, all right? Preparation is all about information, all right? So you got to prepare. You can't just go out there half-cocked like I did and said, hey, I know kids are in trouble and they would love an entrepreneurial program, so I'm just going to make one and figure it out later, all right? I mean, that's what I did. My wife was a teacher, and I came up with this idea, and then I just ran with it like a bull. I was just like, people told me no, and I just ran them over and made them buy it. Well, not everybody, but some people. All right. So you want to prepare. All right. That's going to help you mitigate risk, manage risk, preparing and gathering as much information, data, like a scientist, and then examining that data. That examination of that data is called metadata. All right. Now leverage is very important. So hypothetically, leverage is basically, for example, that if you know that every year financial companies lose 25% of their revenue because their telephone networks go down, well, that's your leverage. They have to buy a redundant network. Redundant network means they have to buy a backup network. That's your leverage, all right? Now, the only thing you got to worry about at that point is competition, all right? If you know that, what's another way to express leverage? If you know that parents, right, have to go to work from 9 to 5, and their kids get off at 3 o'clock or 2:30, well, who's going to watch their kids after their kids get off? They can't send their kids home alone. They burn down the house, get in trouble, right? Have all kind of garbage, drugs, promiscuous behavior, pregnancy. That's leverage. You can come up with a daycare center that'll pick the kids up from school, and the parents will have to pay for it. That's leverage, all right? So the keys to successful negotiation is preparation, gathering information, and finding your leverage. Do that. Emotional intelligence. I cannot stress this enough. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your own emotions. Understand if you're feeling angry or you're feeling hurt or whatever your emotions are. And to literally control them so that you don't overreact, so that you can assess the situation properly and act accordingly. When you get in front of employers or employees, they're going to be looking at you, watching you, trying to gauge your emotional intelligence. I am admittedly not as good at this as I'd like to be. I work at this diligently. My parents are from Jamaica, and I can tell you Jamaican people are hot-blooded, probably the stereotyped as the craziest people in the Caribbean. And emotional intelligence is something that we quite frankly don't do well. All right? So but it is critically important. You could do everything else perfect. You could read the Wall Street Journal. You could invent the most incredible commodity and have the greatest sales pitch, and you could do everything perfect. But if you can't control your emotions, you're just not going to get there. You won't get to the finish line. You'll trip yourself. So again, emotional intelligence is the ability to say, hey, I'm feeling angry right now. Let me calm myself down and assess the situation so I can make a decision as to how I should react, or maybe I shouldn't react at all. And so I literally talk to myself in my head like something happened a few hours ago. And my natural instinct was to do typical Bintel blow up, get angry. And I literally have developed a little voice in my head that says, Bintel, you're angry right now. Take it easy. Let's just figure this out. And after about 5 or 10 seconds, or maybe like a minute of me like calming myself down, nobody knows I'm doing this. I'm doing this in my own head. I'm always like, Jesus, thank you so much that I didn't blow up, because look, the answer to my problem was right here. And if I would have reacted the way I wanted to react when the situation first occurred, I would have turned it into a bigger mess. Now, that's a macro level, a high level. There's terms called micro and macro. Macro is like when you're looking, macro, M-A-R-C-O, is when you're in a plane, or if you're high above people and you're looking down at them and you're like, wow, I see everything that's going on. You have a macro level view, all right? That is a macro level view of emotional intelligence. The next slide is going to give it to you on a micro level understanding, where and micro is like when you're looking at something through a microscope. All right, you're really looking at the details and you're looking at the DNA, and really your view is someplace that people can't see without really a powerful lens. All right, That's what we're going to give you now, a micro level understanding of emotional intelligence. You need to master both. All right, so this is probably one of the most important slides of this entire class, of this entire year. This is something that I work on and everyone works on daily. It's called emotional intelligence. And it's more important than the product you're selling. It's basically your ability to emotionally connect with people, right? And solve problems. Whenever you hear somebody arguing or fighting or a disturbance, that is a direct indicator that somebody, one or both of those people, are not emotionally intelligent. Or there's a lack of some commodity of some sort somewhere. People only fight when they don't have enough of something. Food, respect, love, all right? All those things are commodities. And when there's not enough of that to go around, people fight. If you put a pack of hungry wolves in a den and don't feed them, they'll tear each other apart. Okay? So let's go into this. Empathy. Empathy is being able to say, you know what? I understand what you're going through, and expressing that to people. Okay? Somebody comes into class one day and they slam their books down on the desk and they put their head down and they don't want to talk. You don't say to them, "What's wrong with you? What you slamming stuff in here for? What's wrong with you? The person with empathy would say, "Hey, you okay? I see you're having a hard day. What's up? You need any help? Do you need some water? How can I make you feel better?" That's empathy. All right, being able to empathize with other people. Your customers want you to do that. There's a thing called feel, felt, found. It's a move that salespeople use. They say, "Hey, Mr. Customer, I understand how you feel. That you don't want to have me come in here, another used car salesman, and sell you a car that doesn't work, and when it breaks down, you come back, and then you're upset." But other people that have come into this dealership have felt the same way. And I can tell you that when they took a chance, what they found was, all right, it's a move. It's called the feel, felt, found move. And it's all about empathy, all right? Your ability to express empathy for people will calm them down. And then they'll trust you. And if there's no trust, there is no sale. All right, leadership. Leadership is about being able to endure pain and come out the other side successfully. All right? If you're a leader, you can do that. People will follow you because they'll say, "Wow, such and such didn't have food to eat. And she was pregnant and she had a child in high school and she still found a way to figure out how to get through college and become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Listen, whatever she says, I'm following her." She was able to endure all that pain and come out the other side successful. She's a leader. Okay? Listening skills. You never interrupt your customer. Because what that says to the customer is, I'm telling this person what my pain is. And they're not even listening to me. They're cutting me off. They're interrupting me. So if they don't even listen to my pain to understand what it is, how can I trust them that they're going to solve it? They're not even let me tell them what I'm in pain about. You never interrupt your customer. If you ever go to a psychologist, they'll sit there. I've gone to psychologists because I was getting divorced and they made me and my ex-wife go to a therapist to find out which one of us was the more sane parent, all right? Which was a waste of time, but anyway. The psychologist sat there and didn't say a word. Most of them don't say a word. They just listen to you. And if you notice, when you leave meetings with people that don't talk but listen to you, you'll leave the meeting feeling like you just met the most intelligent person you've ever met in your life. Meanwhile, they did not say a word. Listening skills. A CEO's most valuable trait and valuable skill is not in their ability to identify value and create value and then sell it. It's in their ability to listen. It's been said it's the number one skill a CEO can possess, your listening skill. And then time management. Being able to manage time, all right? Because if I can tell you right now, you can master this program, you can read the Wall Street Journal. If you can't manage time and you're late and you can't figure out what you should do first and prioritize and manage time to get everything done, taken care of in 24 hours, you will never be successful. No matter how talented you are, no matter how valuable your commodity is, you won't. So if you can do these things, you have to develop your emotional intelligence skills to where they're brolic. Brolic means just muscular, all right? And if you can do that, you're a special person. Now, the people at the top, they have zero emotional intelligence because they don't have to. They have all the power. They own the company. They're arrogant. They're horrible people. But the people at the bottom, they have to use emotional intelligence to rise to the top. All right, admittedly, guys, this is something that I did not develop and I need to work on myself. Being able to identify personality types, all right? When you walk into a meeting with an employer or you're just talking to somebody, first thing you should do is listen to them, use your emotional intelligence, let them speak to figure out what type of personality you're dealing with, all right? I think Type A personality people are very strong-minded people. They tell you what they feel. They're straight shooters. They don't pull any punches. They don't BS around, all right? Miss Griffin, your principal, she's a type A personality. When I do something wrong she doesn't like, she calls me, she gets right in my face. Bintel, you can't do that. Don't do this again. Blam, hands up the phone, all right? After she feels comfortable that I understand it, she becomes very loving and affectionate. But if you do something wrong, she's going to get right up in your face and tell you exactly what she likes. No sugarcoating. I think that's her military background, all right? You have to be able to identify the type of person you're dealing with and then turn yourself into a mirror image of them, right? Talk at the same level they're talking. Posture yourself at the same posture so that they feel comfortable with you, all right? This is a skill that you need to develop, that I need to we all need to work on, all right? I can also tell you that the most beautiful music that any decision maker, DM, like Mrs. Griffin, she's a decision maker, will ever hear is the sound of their own name. Okay, so this is another vocabulary drill. This one is a little more extensive than the last one, but it's very important. I want to quickly tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that when I walk around during the day, when I'm not in my suit and tie and I'm in like my sweatpants and my hoodie, all right, I wear a hoodie. I have 8 hoodies in my closet, and I love wearing hoodies. I'm always in the gym. I'm either working or I'm in the gym. And when I walk into like a convenience store, a 7-Eleven with my hoodie on, I look in the eyes of the people behind the counter and they're usually in terror. They look like, oh my God, some big black man is coming in and going to rob us. He's going to pull out his big black Uzi and shoot us. I see it in their face. As soon as I open my mouth and start talking, it's sad to say, but I can see that they're in shock. Sometimes, literally, I'll see their bodies shake with every word that comes out of my mouth. I'm not sensationalizing this. This happens. It's like I can actually control them with my voice. And I don't know if you ladies and gentlemen know, but voiceovers, like when they have commercials and they have some voice in the background for like the Army or whatever commercial, those producers of those commercials look for black people. They will hire a black man first, because the word on the street is that black men have more natural baritone in their voice. So all those classically trained actors, like I forget that Morgan Freeman and guys like him, they just clean up doing those voiceovers. That's a residual income, meaning they do an hour's worth of work and they get paid $100,000 every month for as long as the commercial runs. It's a license to steal. And all those black classically trained actors that talk like that, with that, proper baritone in their voice, proper English, whatever that means, without slang, like without patois, they make a ton of money doing that. Just putting that out there, just so you know. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that your voice, when you're talking to these people, is almost like a weapon. It's the first thing people will see other than what you look like, how you're dressed. So these vocabulary drills are not just here to be a pain in your behind. This is literally like an etiquette class, all right? And it's powerful. The people, they're going to be sitting there listening to you talk, and they're going to make a determination on who you are based on your vocabulary. And in their mind, they're going to be like, listen, this young lady or this young man is black. And yes, they may come from the inner city, but Jesus Christ, that's a smart individual right there. We need to invest in whoever they are because that person is on the ball. Just because you use certain words, all right? It's a weapon. It's a way of managing and manipulating people into giving you their money, all right? Because remember, they're buying you. So profit margin, all right, markup. Profit margin is basically how much money is left over after you've created and sold your product. All right, and that includes all the time it took you to create a prototype, the time it took you to market it, the money it cost, all of that money and time. And how much did all that cost you per unit of your item? If it costs you, and your investors want to know, how much does it cost to make each item? Well, if it total cost to make each item is $7 and you sell it for $25, right? Your profit margin is something that is very, is profitable, right? And now if you're buying something and reselling it, right? If you're buying like when I was buying computers from the distributor and reselling them to companies, we would mark it up 30%. All right, so profit margin and companies look at what's your profitability margin. How profitable is your company? All right, if you don't want to do $1 million in revenue and then your profit is only $50,000, that's not good. All right, you want to do $1 million in revenue and you want your profit to be $600,000. You want to be 60% profitable. And the reason you're going to be profitable is because people are going to be buying into you. And they're going to buy it at whatever price you say. That means you could literally buy something and give them a 200, 300% markup. And just because of who you are and how you carry yourself, they'll pay for it. All right. Credit score. That's very important. What's your credit? When you go out there and you want to get a loan for a new fleet of buses or whatever your product is, your credit score plays a part. Encapsulate. All right, encapsulate is a word that's very popular in the world of information technology where I come from. All right, so when they talk about internet protocol and sending your packets across the internet network, and if you don't know what this means, don't worry about it. But they're saying that your voice is encapsulated, it's put inside an IP packaging. Right, they call it a packet. Right. So I like to think of it as like when I used to, wear my Ralph Lauren suits and get in my Range Rover car and put on all my Cartier watch and my briefcase, and I wasn't Bintel anymore. All of a sudden I was the black guy in the Range Rover. I encapsulated myself in all of those brands. And because I was in those brands and people trusted those brands, they ultimately trusted me. All right. So how will you encapsulate yourself is something you need to be very mindful of. Protocol. Protocol is just a set of instructions. We'll go into that later. Prototype is just a markup or basically a draft of your product. So if you say you're going to create a new weight or a new speaker or a new headphone, you're going to have to make one. And you're going to have to walk around with your prototype in your briefcase when you do presentations. All right. Corporate espionage is basically a corporate spy who's spying on your products, and your competition will plant a corporate spy inside your company to steal your ideas, right? And that's why you have to patent it. Patent pending is a patent that's not necessarily a patent. It's just pending you getting your act together, pending you get the product to be working, and you make sure that nobody else has already invented it. And your patent pending status is usually for a year. First, second, third, and fourth quarter. Those are the three. That's how you divide up the year. All right. The years are divided into 4 quarters. January to March is the first quarter. April to June is the second quarter, and whatever else. So it's broken up into 3 months. The year. 12 divided by 4 is 3. All right. And there are 4 quarters in the year. All right. And you get quarterly bonuses and yearly bonuses. Long versus short-term loans. Interest, outsourcing. Outsourcing is when you say, you know what, it's more expensive for us to manufacture this stuff in-house, so let's hire some other company to manufacture it. So that means we're going to outsource it because we don't have the skill set in-house. It's going to cost more money for us to manufacture it, so let's pay another company to do that. Discretionary versus non-discretionary. Discretionary product is a product that you don't necessarily need, all right? Like a Rolex watch. You don't need a Rolex watch. You can get a Timex. You can get an Apple Watch for a lot cheaper. All right. Non-discretionary is something you need. Food, shelter. All right. Pampers for your baby. All right. Diapers, whatever. These are things that you absolutely have to have. Soup when you're hungry. Right? These are non-discretionary products are a lot easier to sell than discretionary products. And if you have a product that's discretionary, you have to do a lot more work to get people to trust in it and buy it, all right? Some people say that this formula thing is a discretionary product. You don't need to teach black kids entrepreneurship. Let them go out there and get beat up and murdered by the corporate world. So what? We got beat up. Let them get murdered. I think it's a non-discretionary. Subjective versus objective. Subjective means it's nuanced, right? There are factors that are playing where you can't just say, you know, well, because that young black man was walking down the street late at night with you know, and he beat somebody up, that doesn't necessarily mean he has to go to jail. Maybe there were nuances. Maybe somebody hit him. Maybe somebody threw something. Maybe somebody called him the N-word. All right. There are other factors at play. You're just not black and white. Whereas the cops want to deal with you objectively. Look, he's out. He's black. He hit somebody. He goes to jail. Period. All right. It's black and white. No, there's no nuance. There's no reasoning. All right. When people are talking to you, they're gonna talk it. Well, listen, they're gonna say, well, hey, well, if you look at this thing subjectively, you need to be able to know what they mean by that, because they'll talk to you like that. And if you can't say, okay, he's talking about the nuances and all of the different factors that go, if you can't understand what they're saying, they'll lose you, and then they'll think you're not smart, and then you won't get a deal. All right. Revenue is just how much revenue you do. Meaning, if you're selling your product at $500 a piece and you sell 50 million of them a year, you multiply 500 times 50 million. That's your revenue. All right, and your profit is something else. Supply is just a product. And supply chain management. Supply chain management is how are you going to make sure that you have enough product in your stores to keep up with the people that are coming in to buy it? All right, how are you going to make sure your shelves are always stocked? Walmart has the best supply chain management strategy in the world, practically. That's why they're such a large company. At Ivy League schools, they study the supply chain management strategies that are employed at Harvard. All right, they study it at Harvard, at the Ivy League. That's how important it is. Logistics is just basically the specifics of how we're going to do things, how we're going to get our packages wrapped, and how we're going to get them on the shelves, and who's going to do this, and how your company moves, the different steps. Logistics, that's what logistics. So you can get a job and hire somebody just to be your logistics manager. Okay, these words are important. And when you get in front of an employer and you start talking like this and speaking with this language, it's a language unto itself. They're just going to get quiet and they're going to listen to you speak. And if you do it properly, the next question out of their mouth should be, how much do we need to pay you to come work for us? So all of these vocabulary words here that we just went over, before I forget, Just to let you know, full disclosure, if you read the Wall Street Journal and or the Financial Times newspaper every day for 4 years straight, the word on the street is that is the equivalent of getting a master's in business administration from any accredited college. If you do that, you'll be able to walk into any job paying at a pay scale of, say, $80,000 a year with a bonus that should get you to like 120. You should be able to do that using what you're going to learn in this class as a way of helping you to maneuver through the language of what they're going to be saying. And you watch the Bloomberg channel every day. If you do that every day for 4 years, you've got a master's degree in business administration. Now, once you get your first job, it'll be up to you to be very successful. And they'll probably do something like, if the pay scale is is 80, they'll probably say, listen, because you don't have a college degree and we're taking a chance here, right? This is risky because you didn't go to college. We're going to start you off at 60 for your first year and see how you do. All right? Because no manager is going to want to take a chance on you and then get told, hey, you hired that wannabe that didn't go to college and look, you got egg on your face. If you're successful on that first job, after that it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to say anything. They're not even going to ask you about your college degree. I suggest you go to college and read the Wall Street Journal. But if you can't, if for some reason you can't, you don't come from a family that can afford to give you a college education, or if you're in a position where you just honestly can't go, if you read those newspapers and look up any words that you don't understand in Investopia as a guide, you've got a master's in business administration. Not on paper, but in your brain you definitely have one. And then once you get your first or your second job, you can make them pay for your college degree, and then you're in the same boat. Now, the language that people will say behind your back is that, hey, he or she got here without a college degree. So he or she is obviously tougher than some pampered you-know-what that went to college and was paid for by his mama. All right? And then, so if you do good, they'll defend you and say that. If you don't, they'll say, hey, well, what do you expect? He doesn't have a college degree. He can't finish a task and can't think critically. It was a waste of time. Let's scrap it and move on. Fire him, dump him, manage him out of the business and get rid of him. All right, so if you don't do this and you want to go the route I just suggested and you become a success in the corporate world, you'd be like Kobe coming right out of high school and going right into the pros. But just in case you can't make it to college, I suggest you go to college. Okay, management styles, right? This is about making a company. So you're going to have to learn how to manage your teams, right? And there are 3 distinct management styles. Management style X was the management style that was used in slavery, that people are lazy and you have to whip them and beat them and just, stay on top of them, and they call ride them, micromanage them and make sure that they do the job. And that was used in the Industrial Revolution, which was after slavery, and in slavery, okay? And the Industrial Revolution, there'd be some task manager, get to work, on time, we're going to dock you if you don't get here, and you write you up and fire you, right? That's the X management style. And it basically says that people are lazy, and if you don't stay on top of them, they won't work, all right? Now, education, really quick, was an experiment. It was an experiment. Education was something that was in Africa and ancient Egypt and Kush and places like that, right? But when the United States of America was first formed, and there was no education, there were no schools. See little kids walking around carrying bundles of wood, helping their parents work in the fields, all right? Poor people. You as soon as you can walk, you can work, all right? Education was invented in America because they realized that to work these heavy machines that were going to be coming out because of the Industrial Revolution, they couldn't just have anybody with any moron back there pressing the buttons and turning on the steam engines. They had to have people with some sort of education. And it was an experiment, all right? That's how education began in the United States of America. Even the white, elite felt that the poor whites weren't smart enough to be educated, and they were like, no, we got to do this. So it was kind of like it was a scientific experiment, and it worked. All right, it worked, and over time it was reinvented into a way to buy yourself a better job. It was turned into a commodity. All right, a commodity is defined as anything bought or sold. And when you hear people talk about a product as commoditizing itself, meaning that it's becoming so mainstream that the price goes down and everybody starts to buy it. All right, there are 2 definitions for a commodity. One is the definition that you might hear economists talk about is when a product is in its natural form, like oil, when it comes out of the earth and it hasn't been processed so you can put it in your car. That's a commodity. When you get zinc or copper out of the earth, that's a natural commodity. All right, that's the term that the economists use. I'm saying that a commodity, just to make it easy, is anything that people buy or sell. including people and money. All right. Now the management style, the Y management style was something that came after the X style, and it was basically said that if you give people a comfortable place to work where they feel like they're making a difference and they like their job and they feel like they're being paid fairly, they will come to work and they will happily do their job, and you'll have a very harmonious work environment, right? So in the 80s and all those, after the World War II, I believe, I think it's World War I or World War II, I'm not sure. There was a law was written that gave all the veterans free college education, and I forget the name of it, but it'll come back to me later. And they say that act or whatever it was, that giving all the veterans free education created the biggest middle class in the history of the United States of America, just giving all those veterans the access to free education. All right. And that's where the management style Y came from. All right. And it was very successful. That's the whole, the man's going to work with his briefcase and the woman stays home, and the traditional, conservative working class environment where, of the American dream, and he buys a home and he's happy at work, and, it's just a great life. It's a wonderful life. Leave it to Beaver. That's that management style. Okay. And it worked okay, but a new management style was invented by the Chinese and the Asian people, and it was the Z management style. And this is why the Chinese and the Japanese are sort of kicking America's tushy. All right, and their management style, which has been adopted by companies like Google and a lot of the internet tech companies, says that you, as the manager, bring your team into your office and ask your team for ideas. Say, hey, how should we accomplish this? This is a problem we have to do. How do we get over this? How do we accomplish this goal? Well, your team is going to feel so grateful that their boss is allowing them to even give their opinion, that they're going to just gush and tell you everything that they're going to do and what they can do and what they think they can do and by what time. And you sit there as the manager and you say, I like that. I don't like that. I'm going to do that. And they're going to tell you what you need to do. And they'll even volunteer and tell you how much time it's going to take them to do it, because they're so happy that you're allowing them to share in the management of the company. They're going to feel emotionally connected to the company. When they do this, you take the ideas that you like, but you hold them to the times that they said they're going to accomplish what they said they were going to do. And they will work tirelessly not to let you down. That is the most effective management style, and it is why the tech companies are becoming billions. Everybody wants to work at Google. It's a very emotionally comfortable place. People walk around feeling like they have a part of the company, in addition to the fact that they get stock options, and so they call it company culture. Is said it's more important than the actual product and the pay that people get. People want to feel a sense of satisfaction where they're working. All right, you, as the manager and as the founder of your company, need to know which management style you need to employ at what time to get your company to work at the optimal level. Now, when you guys are working in teams, you need to do this as well. And I don't think anybody in your team or in your class is going to appreciate you bossing them around. So I would think that sticking to the Y management style and the Z management style will make you successful. So we touched lightly so far on the value of models as an example of success, and we also talked about risk and combining models and formulas to fight risk at the highest and lowest levels of the world. That's what people do. People that are successful, they combine models and formulas. So to extend that, this lesson is about turning ourselves into models. and reinventing ourselves, all right, so that we can sell ourselves to the world. That's the key. And one thing I want you to just keep in mind, and which is very important, in this life, right, most of us are running after success. We wake up in the morning, we run outside to see if we can find a friend. We see if we can find a love, somebody who was a romantic relationship that makes us happy, that makes us feel loved. Abraham Maslow's theory of needs, the love and belonging needs, right? If we go outside and we run into, say you ran outside and you ran into Oprah Winfrey, right? She's just at the corner store and you run into her. You're like, oh my God, I came home and I saw Oprah Winfrey on the corner store, and I walked up to her and started talking to her, and she laughed and she gave me her number, and now she said she and I are going to be the best of friends. That would be an amazing day, because you chased after someone that's a model of success, who is successful, and you won. You developed a relationship with them, right? But for the person who you're chasing after, what you should think about is success is chasing them. Success, you are chasing after success now. But what you want to do is get to the point where success chases you relentlessly, where you need bodyguards to keep success off you because people are just coming at you. Paparazzi is going to get you one way or another. You are the model of success. How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that to the point where you have this magnetic attraction? How are you going to get the world to see you as an amazing aspirin that cures so much pain for the world that people just flock to you everywhere you go? That's the goal, right? How are you going to do this? That is what we're going to discuss today. Okay, so this is the story of the famous Nathan's Hot Dogs company. And in the industry, what we're about to do is referred to as walk through a case study. All right? So back in I think Nathan's began, I think it says here, since 1936, right on the hot dog. I didn't even remember that, but I think it says 1936, right? So in 1936, or around that time, no, exactly that time, there was a meat crisis. There was like some sort of disease that was in all of the meat in the United States of America. Nobody could eat meat. If you ate meat, you would die of some like worms or ringworms, some weird, horrible disease that was just killing people. And Nathan's Hot Dogs decides, just I guess through bad luck, to start a hot dog company in the midst of this. So anybody with sense would say that is insane amounts of risk, and that company is doomed for failure. So in there, I mean, it was a very simple innovation, what they did. I don't even think it was an innovation. You can call it an innovation, but one of the elements of the formula is relationships. And the wisdom, the overarching wisdom in business is that success in business is all about relationships. And this case study sort of proves that, is a proof to that. So the CEO or the leaders, the management team of Nathan's come up with just a very simple plan to give all the doctors free lunch. They walked to a hospital that was nearby where they set up their truck. It was a food truck, I think. I'm pretty sure. And they told all of the doctors in the hospital that they could come and eat lunch for free at their hot dog stand. And sure enough, something in it for them, right? If you want somebody to do something for you, make sure you explain to them that there's something in it for them. All the doctors came every day to get this free lunch from Nathan's Hot Dogs. Well, people saw that. People were watching that. And in their mind, they said, hey, if the doctors in the midst of this meat crisis would eat Nathan's Hot Dogs, then it's got to be good enough for all of us. And in the midst of a literally like a pandemic that we're going through, but just with meat, Nathan's Hot Dogs exploded. And they were a brand from I think they've gone out of business now because people are so health conscious now. And I mean, there was a Nathan's Hot Dog around my neighborhood. I don't see it anymore. I think Chipotle and those sorts of fast food chains have put Nathan's Hot Dog to bed and disrupted that, that food market. But Nathan's Hot Dogs, when I was a kid, was equal to McDonald's. All right, it was a thing. You go into the store and you see, Nathan's Hot Dogs in the stores. Now I don't even think they sell hot dogs anymore, but Nathan's Hot Dogs was everywhere. All right? And they used relationships. The moral to this case study is, in life, you will be judged by the company you keep. Okay, so all of the people that you're about to see in this slide were able to successfully reinvent themselves. All right, Magic Johnson, basketball player, used his model championship behavior to reinvent himself into an incredible businessman. Dr. Dre, the founder of NWA, all right, the infamous group Niggers with Attitude, which I don't like that word, obviously, but he's the guy. He was an incredible producer. He was like the Quincy Jones of hip-hop music. He reinvented himself and created Beats headphones. This is Warren Buffett, all right? When I talked about the law of attraction, all right, people come to flock to see Warren Buffett just to hear what he's going to say. The Mutual of Omaha, Rihanna, all right? She went from good girl turned bad. Remember that? I don't think if you guys remember it, but she was like a little happy little girl, and then she went bad girl and she exploded, all right? Will Smith, he was supposed to go to MIT. Really smart guy. He's the master of emotional intelligence. I don't think anybody has mastered emotional intelligence. Will Smith could have probably been the president if he wanted to. He's so good at it, all right? But this guy, this crazy looking guy, is really a case study, all right? This guy's name is Sting. And Mr. O'Brien might get a kick out of this. He may even know who Sting is. Sting was an English teacher. He was an English teacher. And legend has it that his father took him to see the greatest guitar player in the history of civilization, arguably, the great Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix is the best guitar player ever. Ever. He incidentally was the guitar player for the guy James Brown that we talked about that reinvented Miles Davis's song So What and gave birth to hip-hop music. Jimi Hendrix played in his band, right? So allegedly Sting goes to Sting's father, takes him to see Jimi Hendrix, and Sting just goes, he's like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a musician. Now, the interesting part about him is that he used all of that English literature, right? And I don't really particularly like saying English literature. My mother used to beat me up and make me read it when I was a kid, but whatever. He used all that, let's just say literature, and he turned it into music. He just basically took literature stories and put it behind hardcore rock and roll. I mean, when you hear The Police, and I'll put some of his songs on, I used to listen to Sting relentlessly. He is in the Mount Rushmore of musicians. He was a teacher. And any rapper, all of them, worship him. I mean, his entire band, after he left The Police, that was the name of his original group, and they just basically took reggae music, like ska reggae music, and mixed it with rock and roll or the blues and created an incredible album. They sound like pit bulls playing instruments, just incredibly aggressive. And it was just three of them, Sting playing the bass, his drummer, and an insane, aggressive little guitar player. And they made classic music. And then Sting left them, and he really hurt their feelings, because there are interviews where they say, we were always waiting for him to come back, but he never did. He went and he got involved with some of the most talented black musicians, and he created just incredible music. Him and Branford Marsalis, who was like literally the John Coltrane of my era. I went to see I wanted to play with Branford Marsalis. So everyone does this. This whole notion of reinventing yourself, people do it. Everyone does it that's successful. I didn't have the audacity. I was a scared little kid. I didn't have the audacity to write a curriculum and think that I'm going to teach all kids, poor, black, white, or whatever, to go up against the top 1% and topple and beat them. I'm not tough enough to do that, but I invented this character, and he is. That guy's a monster, all right? So feel free to do the same thing. Don't hesitate to reinvent yourself. Don't listen to people when they say you're trying to be something you're not. Yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to be successful, okay? Enjoy yourself, have fun, and let your imagination run away with you. Okay, so remember this, the logic statement, the idea, the product maker, the disruption maker. Remember at the beginning of the class, I said that you're going to sell yourself and your product as a package deal. Whenever somebody's buying a product, they're buying you. All right, George Clooney, this famous actor, he just sold some liquor brand for practically $1 billion, I think, $700 million, him and his partner. That guy Colin McGregor, that boxer that Floyd Mayweather beat up, I don't know why they're celebrating, because he got whipped by Floyd Mayweather, but he just sold his liquor brand for like $500-600 million. All right, he just made a ton of money off of it because he was successful when he was in the UFC. He was knocking people out. All right. Who else sold their liquor? Oh, the Kardashians. They have a liquor, and they just sold it for, I don't know, somewhere upwards of $500 million, right? So people are buying them, all right? So you use your success and spin off products off of your success, all right? But the first thing you got to do is turn yourself into a product. So I'm not telling you how to do that. That's your journey. That's your personal prerogative. I'm just going to tell you quickly what I did. When I was working in corporate, I was a sales engineer, as you all know, and I was working with, meeting CEOs, wearing suits to work, and it was right in the middle of the golden age of hip-hop music. Puffy and Jay-Z were all over the place. Puffy was on TV. He was like, take that. And Jay-Z was telling people how much of a bum you were because you weren't driving in a Range Rover, which just had my blood boiling. And I was hanging out with these guys. So by day, I was hanging out with the CEOs, the corporate nerds, and at night, I was hanging out with gangsters and thugs and rappers and athletes in these parties. And I sometimes did not look the part. All right, wearing a suit was not cool. I can tell you, girls back then, the entertainment industry was such a monster that you would meet people in clubs and you'd say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm in the industry. All right, black people, money was falling from the sky. President Clinton was in office. Everybody was making tons of money. It was literally, it was insane. All right, and I'm telling you right now, black people were running Manhattan. All right, Puffy and Jay-Z were doing parties everywhere, and it was just a scene. We were in every restaurant, in every hotel. I went to the opening of Tao. I was everywhere. I was literally, it was. I've never seen any. We partied, all right? And I spent every dime I made in every 5-star restaurant, VIP party, VIP club, just running all over the place. So the girls weren't interested in me, though. They were interested in which record executive and which athlete was walking through. And I was invisible. They didn't want anything to do with the nerd engineer in the suit, please. All right? So I consciously came up with the idea to reinvent myself and to model myself as a record executive and an athlete. So I started working out. I went to the gym every day, and I tried to, as best I could, make myself physically look like an athlete, right? And athletes, when they left it's not like today where you see athletes wear weird outfits. It wasn't like that, all right? It was like athletes were wearing suits. All right. And so I tried to make myself look like a football player that, was just happened to be walking around in a suit. And I would take my tie off and I would walk around in like expensive suits with $100 purple label ties. I have hundreds of them in my closet. All right. And it worked. It worked. All right. Video girls started to pay attention to me. And this purposeful act, I even came up with a name. I didn't tell girls my real name. I named myself Levi. That was my name. And I went out to the Hamptons and I was at this party with Russell Simmons that you're going to read about in the book. Russell Simmons was a guy who was very instrumental in creating hip-hop music. His brother, Run DMC, had a very popular music group, and they had some really popular songs. Russell Simmons is like the godfather of hip-hop music. You guys probably never heard of him. But we were at a party in the Hamptons, and the bouncer at the party, he was this huge guy. He was like he was like 6'5". He was brolic. He was diesel, and I was like, who is this guy? And everybody loved him. And I walked up to the door, and I heard somebody call him Levi, right? And I was like, stealing that name. So I reinvented myself into this guy who was like could integrate and be successful visually in both the corporate world and the entertainment industry. All right. So, and it worked. It worked perfectly. Girls loved it. When I met them, I told them my name was Levi and I was wearing a suit and I was in these parties, and I pulled it off. I pulled it off. And my first book talks about it. I didn't call myself Levi, which is why I'm so angry at the company Levi Jean, because had I known that Levi was flaunting murdering of black men and torturing black people in slavery, I'd have never named myself Levi. But that's beside the point. The point is that I made a conscious effort to reinvent myself into this wannabe nerd engineer, entertainment industry athlete looking kind of a guy, so that I could be successful in both worlds, socially at least, and then I hoped that it would lead me to economic success. And so what I'm telling you this is I'm being completely honest with you, because you, ladies and gentlemen, have to do the same thing. All right. And you have to reinvent your personality. You have to reinvent the way you look. You have to encapsulate yourself in the right clothes. It's a whole act. It's a whole thing. And I mean, you might not have to do it to the degree that I did it, because right now successful entrepreneurs walk around in slippers and bathrobes, because the internet technology world has made it so that you don't know who's an entrepreneur. All right, so you can literally walk into a board meeting in flip-flops and in Crocs, and you could be the next billionaire rock star disruptor. But so it's not completely the same, but the rules still apply. So I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to think long and hard about how you're going to do this, right? Depending on what industry you're going to go into. How are you going to exist in both worlds? Because when you're in the street, right, and I used to be around in clubs. I remember going to this all-white party in Cancun and being on a boat with, I'm telling you guys, I'm not proud of it, but with murderers and gangsters, right? And it was this guy Sean Puffy Combs' boat, and we were and I was terrified. They thought I was a drug dealer like them. They didn't know I was a nerdy engineer. They had no idea, all right? Because I could pull it off. I could talk, and I wasn't talking technology disruptor talk when I was there. I talk slang when I'm around them, and they thought I was I'm not even going to tell you what they thought I was. I'm not proud of that. So think about that. Think about how you're going to reinvent yourself if you feel you have to. All right, how are you going to pass yourself off to people so that they feel like, hey, you know what? Whatever your name is, I feel like I know this person. I feel like I have something in common with this person, and I'm going to befriend them, because success in business is all about relationships. And if you can make these successful people feel that your lives are somehow parallel and you somehow share the same ideals and values, they will befriend you. And it will make the design of your money machine that much easier. And more importantly, it'll make it run that much faster. One thing you must always do is differentiate yourself from the competition. Meaning, by differentiate, I mean show why you're different and better than your competition. All right? So if you're Facebook, you got to be able to say, well, Instagram is different than me and Snapchat is different for this reason. All right. You have to be able to explain that immediately. It's something called an elevator pitch. If you're in the elevator and you meet an angel investor and you got 5 seconds to tell them why they should invest in your product, and if there's competition, no. Let me correct that. There is always competition. If you walk into a meeting and say you don't have any competition, that's a reason for them to end the meeting right there. There's always competition. All right? So if you have to be able, in your elevator pitch, and it's something that you practice in college and in business classes, being able to deliver your value proposition and how you differentiate yourself in the market from all your other competitors in 5 minutes. All right? That's something you're going to have to be able to do. In this project, when you go out and you start telling people, hey, I could clean your garage, and they're going to be like, honey, I can get my uncle to do that, or I can get my son to do that. How are you going to overcome that objection? How are you going to differentiate what you do from her getting her son to do it for free? All right? That, I had to do it. You think Miss Griffin just willy-nilly just let me come up in here and teach you entrepreneurship like there's no other entrepreneurial programs out there on the market? All right? I had to tell her what made mine different. I had to explain it to her. Only then would she trust me and give me a chance. You have to do the same thing. You have to do it for the rest of your life. All right? Always be thinking of that. Jay-Z was like, please don't confuse me with dude. I'm different. Okay, positioning is very important. It's a little different than differentiating yourself from the competition. Positioning is taking into consideration that you have competition, right? And you always will. What is your special place that your competition just can't go, right? Like, so example, my competition is Project Lead the Way and P-Tech. Those are the other engineering programs that are out there. And there's another one called, there's another one where it's like a Monopoly, or the other one is Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship by this Italian guy, right? And he was a teacher, and he came up with some, I don't know what it is, but he just writes all these books, and he he teaches entrepreneurship. And he was a teacher. He was a math teacher or something, or a history teacher. So, and these companies are very successful, all right? Project Lead the Way is the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, all right? It's like the Verizon or the AT&T of entrepreneurship, for engineering for high schools, right? Every school is like, I have Project Lead the Way. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. But the positioning that our company has, Bandit Publishing, is that we're mixing entrepreneurship with engineering, and we're teaching critical race theory in terms of economics and finance and how racism plays into economics. Because no one's really racist. As I said before, racism was an invention. It was always about the money, right? So racism was just an invention so that white or the founders of this country could legitimize turning black people, African people, into animals to get us to work for free. All right? It was labor. It was about free labor. Labor is always the most expensive cost in any company. It's the most, it's the thing that you have to pay the most for. Not your lights or not your insurance, your employees. All right? So if you can get free employees, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's utopia, right? And that's what America had for 400 years. So my position, so back to what we're talking about here, my positioning is that none of these other programs can say that they're created by an African-American male who grew up as an at-risk student, an African-American male who's an engineer, and it teaches critical race theory from the position that shows the economics of it all and how entrepreneurship and racism and race theory plays into economics. None of my competitors can do that, right? And that's why, even though the school districts are purchasing these programs, they're not effective on a massive scale, right? None of them can do what I can do. And unless they all of a sudden invent a black male that says that they are the CEOs of their companies, which they're not going to do, and created everything, they're never going to be able to do that, right? So that's my position in the industry relative to my competition. And I leverage that. Whenever I'm in a conversation with a black principal or a principal your principal said specifically, I want my students to see somebody that looks like them doing what you're doing. And that's why I'm in front of you. So take that into consideration and understand what your positioning is against your competition and be ready to speak on that at any opportunity. Before I forget, this gentleman, his name is Reginald Lewis. He was the richest man, allegedly, was the richest black man in the 80s. I used to walk by Borders and Barnes & Nobles. This is his book. And I was literally afraid to even look at the book because the title was so aggressive. I didn't want any of my managers to see me reading such a book or looking at such a book and find a reason to fire me. That was a mistake. Later on, I realized that the key to his success was simply this. He knew how racist America was. And he knew that white men feel like we'll let the black people have sports and we'll let them have entertainment. Because allegedly, black people, our legs are built different so we can jump higher. They'll make all sorts of ridiculous reasons as to why we're better in sports and entertainment than them. But the one thing they won't tolerate is us being allegedly smarter than them and better in the corporate world. That is their domain, is what they feel. And they will use any means necessary to control and keep you out of it. If you are successful in a corporation, they will neutralize you and try to put you as the director of human resources, which is a really good strategy because it's a smokescreen and it tells any possible people that are going to sue them for discrimination that we can't be racist. Our human resources director is black. So 90% of the time, if you look at a major corporation and you look for the black people in the C-level suite, they'll put them in the chief human resources officer position. But it's just a way of neutralizing black people. But Reginald Lewis knew this, and all the people who said, no, there's no racism, and please don't be, stop being so paranoid, which I was terrified of when I was in college and high school. I was like, I got through engineering, but how am I going to defeat racism? Well, Reginald Lewis came up with a strategy. No matter what deal he was working on, he never let the people who were closing the deal, who were signing the deal, know that it was a black man who was the architect of the deal in the background. He always sent in a front person, a white male or a white female. The people that he did his large deals with never knew that it was Reginald Lewis that they were doing business with. They always thought it was some young, picture perfect, golden Ivy League white male or white female. And it worked very well for him. He was the richest man in the history of the 80s. So what I'm saying is they can try to, it's a game. This is all a game. And although people may try to stop the game, well, they can't stop the game, but they may try to change the rules, there's always a way. And there is a will. There is always a way.